Today, we are talking about the ethical use of AI within the real estate sector and responsible application of the AI tools within your business. I am your host, Uwa. I've been investing in property for over 20 years now. I'm also a software engineer, and we're combining the experiences from our software and our property development world to bring you the best AI training there is. So stay tuned till the end. Nothing prepares you for the curveballs you're going to experience whilst applying AI within the real estate industry or within your business. And I think it's very important that we look at the ethical side of things because it's all well and good introducing solutions within an industry or within your business. But the added question that one must consider responsibly is, how does this affect every other aspect of my business? How does this new tool affect the buyers? How does it affect my customers? How does it affect my clients, my staff? How does it affect me? So artificial intelligence, even though it's sold as this silver bullet, this wonderful solution, it is not a wonderful solution in the sense that it's all based on trained data. What does that mean? That means that AI is reliant on all of the information that's been in existence over the last however many years that were used to train AI. So if there were biases within the data that was used, or if there were biases within the wider general population, and that's the information that's used to train AI, guess what? The AI would reflect that bias. So a typical example would be if you typed into ChatGPT or into DALL-E, show me a diagram or create a picture of what a family of 5 looks like. Guess what that would look like? It would look like the traditional family. And you may say, okay, show me a picture of what a traditional Black American family looks like. And trust me, you don't want to see what that picture looks like because there's bias, or there was the last time I tried this. So these are things you need to think about. If you bring that down and narrow it down to the real estate industry, you'd be saying, okay, what is a picture of a typical real estate agent or realtor? It would be a male white person, which isn't inaccurate, but at this point in time, society is trying to change those kind of biases and those kind of presumptions. And if that's what everything else is based on, then guess what? You have a pack of cards, and once one card is removed, everything might come crumbling. In the sense that if your customers start to feel like all the decisions are being made by a computer, and if computer says no, nothing happens, there's no other human being in the loop, and nobody can help come up with something that's reasonable and sensible for them or for the transaction they're about to complete, then they lose trust and they may disappear and go to another agent who's more human or has more of a human touch. So as has been mentioned over the last few days, I mean, those slides are still online, so feel free to go back to days 1, 2 and 3. But today being day 4, let's have a recap on what we've covered. So I think we've touched on the importance of the ethical considerations. We need to introduce fairness. These computers are not there to control us. We should still maintain some control within our business, and that means we dictate what happens. There needs to be diversity in some of the decisions that are made. There needs to be inclusion. You need to consider all your staff and all aspects of the demographic that approaches your business or the business you're trying to approach now. And with AI, you're more likely going to be online, so invariably you're not really sure who your customer is, because your customer could come from anywhere. So the best thing to do is make sure you're inclusive as possible. You don't increase or highlight some of the biases that have existed in the past and some of the things that are potentially offensive to certain groups of society. Having said all that, let's not forget the fact that AI has this huge potential to transform all our real estate transactions. Will make us more efficient, make us more data driven, and it is up to us to make sure that this tool is used in the right way, used to the benefit of all in society, and make sure that we don't introduce the potential to be a call to answer for certain decisions that tools that we've implemented have made on our behalf. So just as a recap as well, let's look at some of the areas where AI currently is dominating in real estate. So predictive analytics, that's based on information that has been in existence. AI is able to predict what's going to happen next and talk about the future and talk about trends. We already know that AI exists in automated valuations, so AVMs or desktop valuations that lenders use, chatbots, and property management. So chatbots for onboarding of new clients and filtering of new clients, creating a bespoke customer experience to your business and to the industry. All of these things are areas where AI essentially dominates and can stratospherically increase our businesses. So all these things are important. The benefits would be accuracy, better accuracy, less mistakes with albeit the forms that we send out to our advertising side of things, the social media marketing, anything that involves any aspect of our business. AI can definitely increase the accuracy, can definitely increase and improve the customer experience and the efficiency of our businesses. Now let's talk about these key considerations when it comes to bias and fairness. So AI algorithms are trained on data, as I've mentioned before, and that data is historical data. And invariably, a lot of historical data contains bias, and that bias might be if you ask the question such as, what is the possible sex of a person that calls an estate agent at 2 a.m? If the assumption is going to be that it's going to be a male living in a certain part of Texas or a male living in a certain part of London, and all of the rules that follow on from that assumption creates an environment or an experience for that client that suggests that it's a male, then that is a bias that may potentially be wrong, because now we do have females in the workplace. We do have females that are able to phone the agents, do purchases, do deals, do transactions. You cannot have those sorts of prejudgments in place, and we cannot emphasize or enhance those sorts of judgments. Now, when it comes to fairness, something that has been identified quite publicly in the recruitment sphere is the biases around the origins of people who make certain applications, what to expect on their resumes, because there's a lot you can infer from somebody's resume, and invariably, because the bulk of the resumes that have been used to train AI have come from a certain section of society, there's a lot of unfairness that creeps in. So AI may decide to discard certain resumes because it understands that those resumes have come from a certain section of society, and typically, based on data that has been collected in the past, people from that section of society may not be good fits. Now, you can argue that, well, if that is what the data says, then that's a fact. But that forgets, or that doesn't take into consideration that how that data is collected is also important. Because if that section of society that's been discriminated against was never part of the initial data collection process, then AI will be misled. Because then the assumption would be the section of society that's been discriminated against just does not have the requisite skills to be part of a new possible job application or job role, I should say. So that's just an example of bias. Another example would be if you took a part of London called Peckham, for instance, and you trained AI based on data from 20, 25 years ago, that data would not recommend Peckham, for instance, for a 25, 26-year-old who's come out of university, who's trendy and is still potentially building their career. But what that data forgets or hasn't taken into consideration is that there's been a lot of gentrification over the years, and Peckham has become a more desirable part of London, and that information and those changes that happen fairly quickly relative to the vast amount of data and the vast length of data that AI considers, that is something that's missing, and that's something that must be factored into the algorithms, factored into the training. And you, as a company using AI in any aspect of your business, you must think about training using the right models for your business, and also testing that those models actually do what you expect. The next thing to talk about is privacy. AI is trained on so much data, and if you're in a fortunate position of been able to train your own AI with your own data, you need to think about the client information. If that's creeping into the training, you must adhere to the laws. You have the likes of GDPR. You also have the likes of others, CCPA in California, for instance, and you potentially would need consent to use your client's data for any sort of training. I suppose another thing that's probably worth mentioning in connection with the previous point of bias and fairness is the data that's used to train AI also could have been used to train the AI that makes lending decisions. So I suppose it's not difficult for you to imagine that lenders using AI or doing desktop valuations, yes, would do the valuations based on previous data, which could be wrong and or could be unfair. And then secondly, when they decide to lend money, they'll put the applicant into a certain bucket, and that bucket would have criteria to determine who goes into the bucket, and those criteria might be biased, might be unfair. So that's an aspect to also think about. Then you talk about transparency and accountability. There's the importance of understanding how AI is making those decisions, and one being able to explain how those decisions have been arrived at. Because otherwise, if you have high stake transactions and one of the people who has tried to purchase a property, for instance, where you have sealed bids and that sort of thing, if you introduce AI into that decision-making process, you need to be able to explain to everybody who lost out on a bid why they lost out, and be transparent on how the decision was made and all of the criteria that were used to make that decision. And the final one final point to think about is sustainability. AI is going to help us definitely in making the right decisions when it comes to the planet, help us save on our carbon footprint and that sort of thing. But when you talk about AI and how AI is trained, the large models and even small models consume a lot of power, consume a lot of energy to do the initial training. So one must think about, right, if it's costing this amount of carbon footprint to train this AI and it's so expensive, how can we harness that new technology, that new information that the model is bringing to save from within my business? How is this AI going to help me cut down my footprint, cut down my energy usage, and improve my contribution to sustainability? So there are inevitably quite a few challenges when it comes to the bias. I've already talked about lending decisions being made based on historical data. I've also talked about the valuation models that could be deployed when it comes to valuing a potential client's property. If all those decisions are made based on historical data that was biased, then potentially you could be losing business because of the decisions that have been made. So an example would be if you had received a property from an area where the demographics have been judged to be poor, and your lender or the lender for the purchase of that property decides to use AI that's been trained on that skewed data, they may decide not to lend on a property, and the decision will be based on, yes, data, but that data is skewed and it's costing you business because they'll turn down the application. You'd have fewer people that could potentially purchase a property, which means the value of the property has to be pushed down or reduced to the point where you can have predominantly cash buyers. So the impact of AI, even though it's not always obvious, it can be quite subtle, and it can have real life impact on your earning power and on your pocket. So as an AI user within the real estate industry, you need to think about how the decisions AI solutions are making are affecting you. You need to be asking the questions. How was this decision arrived at, Mr. Lender? What data did you use? Is this correct? Is it accurate? And I do know that sometimes after evaluations are made, you can raise questions, but not all lenders allow that. So that's something to be thinking about. There's also discriminatory advertising. So this whole idea of, we'll get ChatGPT to create advertising copy and we'll just push that out, that's quite risky, because invariably, ChatGPT is generative, which means that it creates its own information based on probability of what the next sentence or what the next word is likely to be. So it's all based on probabilities. And if the data is heavily weighted towards the bias side of things, then the advertising copy would also reflect that. So that's something to think about. And the more we apply AI in biased ways, in unfair ways, trust me, your customers, the public, will lose trust in your business, in the information coming out of your business, and ultimately lose trust in AI. It doesn't feel like they would ever lose trust in AI because it's been so helpful and so useful in many other aspects. But you do have to have a person in the middle, and the responsible organizations have a person in the middle, a person in the loop who can validate what's been coming out of the AI solutions. I also understand that some organizations would look at the probabilities of AI's mistakes relative to humans' mistakes, because no one's perfect, and may decide, okay, we can stomach a 95% error, 5% error rate from AI because humans have a 90% error rate or 10% error rate, whatever the comparison is. And I'll still go for that. Yes, that is a decision that you can make within your business, and that is also a workable option, provided you're prepared to deal with potential loss of trust or any legal consequences or social disparities caused as a result of your AI's decisions. So what would be the best practices that I'll recommend for your business? I would say first and foremost, understand the solution that's being deployed to your business. Ask questions about biases, about the fairness, about potential legal consequences of anything you've put into your business, and choose to work with a reputable AI solutions provider and find out what their ethical guidelines are. And only based on those decisions do you then proceed to deploy any type of solution into your business. Also, get yourself and your staff to participate in different types of ethical AI training. There's a lot of that online, and we can also assist with that. It's key that everybody understands the technology they're working with. It's not magic. It's not something that's been dropped on us from heaven. These tools have been created by humans based on data that's existed previously, and we know that society has moved on a bit from those historical biases and historical postures. So think about all of this when you're training your staff. I'd imagine you're your employment HR organization would say, okay, we need to have this number of females and this number of males, this number of whatever society, section of society. So ensure that whatever your business is doing is reflecting all of that. So this brings us to the conclusion of today's session. So the key things that I would want to highlight in today's session are: one, if you're going to use AI in your business, make sure that its use is ethical, make sure you're using it responsibly, make sure you have some level of business criteria for any AI solution that comes into your organization. And I would encourage you to ensure that you're using AI in the right way, you're using AI to benefit society as a whole and benefit all of your client groups, so your vendors and your purchasers, as well as your employees. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you so much for your time. Tomorrow is day 5, and we'll be looking at data, your most valuable asset. Yes, we're starting to get deeper into the weeds, and we're about to explore AI fully for your organization. So on here are our contact details. Feel free to send me an email on autori@autori.ai or go to our website at autori.ai. Feel free to book a call. Let's have an AI audit, and I'll be very, very happy to help bring your business up to the AI time and the AI period. Thank you very much. Goodbye.